soul, and so you think you can tell heaven from hell, and blue skies from pain. Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail, a smile from a veil? And do you think you can tell? And did they get you the trade? Your heroes for ghosts, and hot ashes for trees, and hot air for a cool breeze, and cold culture for change. And did you exchange a walk-on part in the war for a lead role in a cage? Just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground. How we find the same old fears. Wish you were here.
Hi, Sam from Barnhanger Studios, and today we're going to do a deep dive into the mix of Wish You Were Here. So at the start of this video you would have seen the full cover, and I'm going to show you how we achieved all of these different sounds. So by and large this is an acoustic cover, although it does have a bass and a few keys and synths, as well as some lead acoustic guitar as well. So it is still fully laid over and mixed. So if I just start by playing the track, and then I'll isolate some of the stems, and we can just sort of see what's going on sonically. So the first thing you might be able to hear if you're wearing headphones is a bit of noise. I mean, this is artificial noise coming from this acoustic guitar here on the tape emulation. So we turn it off, it turns off. But this bit of noise is only active for the first section of the song when the acoustic guitar's got the telephone EQ on, because we're trying to emulate the sound of a radio like the original track. So if we just give this a play. All we can hear for starters is the EQ on the acoustic guitar. So the acoustic guitar is completely exposed in the first section of the song, and what we've got going on is an acoustic guitar that sounds like this, And then we've got a high-strung Nashville acoustic guitar that sounds like this. And the two of them blended to sound like this. And after that section, we have our first other instrument coming in, which is the acoustic guitar playing the lead intro into the song. So if we just have a listen to this. And what's going to be incredibly apparent if you're wearing headphones is that they're panned quite heavily in each headphone. So the solo is panned 40 to the right headphone, and the acoustic guitar is panned 40 to the left headphone. So they're creating a very wide image. And again, this is me completely emulating what the original recording was done. But if we keep playing. So then we've heard a dramatic change into the entire track there. So what's happened is I have automation going on the acoustic guitar bus, if I just sum that down. And so we have this telephone EQ that's going on in that first section. But the minute that G chord's hit after the solo, in the original track, another guitar is brought in, and then that radio sounding guitar is completely taken away. But I've done this with automation. So if we just look at the EQ when we go through that transition period, it sounds like this. And all those low frequencies in the higher end are completely brought back into play. What's also happening is I have, on my automation, I have pan automation going on both the Nashville and the acoustic guitar, if I just open the pan here. And you see, so it's 41-ish in the headphone, and then that's to match the other solo. But the minute that's chord struck, we have a pan that takes those guitars slowly into the center. And now the only stereo imaging that's happening is that I've got some stereo imaging going on between the two guitars. So, and now I can listen when the vocal comes in as well.
So you think you can tell heaven from hell and blue skies from pain? Can you tell a green field from a cold steel?
So now we have the vocal entering the mix. So the reason we've taken that panning and moved it into the center and created a stereo image is so that the vocal can sit on top of a very even sounding stereo image. We had that sort of discombobulation at the beginning, and that's very deliberate from the way they originally recorded it, to kind of have that sound in the left, have it in the right. But when the actual song starts, we want a very traditional vocal in the middle and a stereo panned acoustic guitar kind of in both sets of headphones for a very even stereo image. So I'm going to keep playing it until more instruments start joining in.
Steel rail, a smile from a veil. And do you think you can tell? And did they get you the trade? Your heroes for ghosts and hot ashes for trees.
So first we had the bass entering and the keys. And we have a return to this lopsided stereo feel with the keys coming in right on the left here. If I play the acoustic guitars as well. now we're going into this next section, which is another guitar solo. So we're not doing the radio EQ anymore. We're not doing the hissing sound. But I am still automating the pan to go in the left to make room for the solo on the right. Now, that's not something that was done on the original. On the original, you had Dave Gilmour scatting over the top of those guitar parts in a really high register, and that's creating its own sort of softer sound. In fact, the guitar part is almost really quiet in the mix because it's not the focus. But here we don't have those vocals, so I am making it the focus. So I'm just doing that pan automation again to sort of create this disorientation before we bring it back in for the second verse. So keep playing. Come back in the middle after this part. Panned. Center.
How I wish you were here. 'Cause we're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground. How we find the same old fears. Wish you were here.
Now we're going to go panned. So now in this section, there's a full bar before that guitar solo comes back in. And for that section, I disputed in my mind, should I keep it central because that's what, is going to be most pleasing. But actually, I left it lopsided during that bar because it felt like it was good anticipation to kind of keep that, and the audience has already had two versions of a guitar solo coming through the right speaker and they're expecting it. But leaving that, just on the left, it adds that excitement that, okay, we're waiting for it, and then when it finally comes, it's a relief. It's still very predominantly in the left speaker. If I show you the bus, or stereo it out, you see we are very left dominant here. And now it's come complete full circle. So there's a very wide stereo imaging going on in here, and you do have to be careful with phase issues. But it doesn't have to be completely in phase, particularly with acoustic guitar, acoustic performances like this. Out of phase or nearly out of phase, as long as it sounds good, it's one of those things. And I've seen people all the time using these phase alignment plugins, which, don't get me wrong, are great for when you're doing something scientific like snare bottom and things that are out of phase and need to be flipped, and that's how you do it. But when it comes to just listening to something, if it sounds good and it's slightly out of phase, it sounds good. And don't go crazy trying to fix a problem that doesn't really exist. Let's just listen to the ending part of this. Now let's just start taking some of these elements in isolation, having a listen. So we take these piano parts because they're very subtle in the mix, and again they're very on the left-hand side. But we have a few bits here. So we have some synths, but mainly the electric piano is what's driving this. So that's our fader here on 3.
Do you think you can
So this is a MIDI piano, quite a really cool effect. And on this, I have a tape emulation on the MIDI piano, just to kind of give it that sort of sense of, because it would feel really pokey if it didn't have any sort of emulator on it, because the rest of the track's acoustic, and you do kind of want it to sound a bit, you know, authentic, a bit analog, to use that word. See the background. It's just on it. And then we have the section here where the synths come in. So if we solo all of the key bus, so there's a couple of points in the track where it goes dun dun, and I've just soloed a synth part for this actually. And in context with the whole song. Just very quietly in the background. And that's a combination of a few things. There's a combination of the electric piano we talked about before, which sounds like this. Just to kind of give a solidity in, like, you know, being able to differentiate between the keys. And then a mellotron, which kind of, and then a really pokey fake trumpet sound. I don't know why, I just experimented with the synths and this one sounded great. But on its own, the trumpet sounds it sounds like on a child's keyboard. But for some reason, that just worked. And then we have a droning synth going on as well at the beginning of the this last instrumental bar. You have it going. And in context. Again, very subtle. A choice I equally could have made here is had those dun-duns come out of the right speaker. It would have sounded fine. I just wanted to keep that right speaker very consistently, that soloed acoustic guitar throughout the whole song. Again, once the audience kind of hears it once, they're sort of subconsciously expecting it. And you can sort of play around with, you know, anticipation and, you know, expectations with certain sounds. Let's take a listen to this bass in isolation, which is here. If I just load up the graphic. So we have a lot going on here. Scooping out low mids is very typical for a bass. Boosting around, you know, just post the 1K mark. And a high pass, well, that's a very aggressive low pass, sorry. Maybe more like that, might have been better. Not that it's particularly audible. And I'm sort of crushing these real lows as well and trying to preserve that 100K zone for the bass. That's total preference. The reason most people do that is because there's a kick drum coming in, but obviously in this song there isn't one. But I got the impression that the bass was feeling a bit too much low end for an acoustic performance. So again, I wanted to keep that bass very firmly peaking in this 100 zone, in and around this boost area. Apart from that, there's some compression coming in from the SSL and very similar EQ tweaks done on the SSL, but obviously that's more colorization than using the Fab Filter 3. So nice. Let's have a look at the vocal chain, because there's a lot going on. And I don't know if you guys ever felt this, but when you're not 100% confident in your own voice, you do add more plugins than you think you should. I know for a fact that if this was somebody else singing, I would have been like, oh, the performance sounds great, and let's do very subtle changes. But I do have a lot going on, so I try and take it bit by bit. There's quite an aggressive reverb going on here, but if we just solo it.
So you think you can tell heaven from hell and blue skies from pain.
So the first thing is this high pass into sort of a low notch downwards.
Can you tell a green field?
And that's not always what you do with vocals, but for me, it was a very airy, high sung from, you know, a slightly higher register So I didn't want those low lows in the song, and it really benefited. Again, I got 2 notches higher. These aren't typical notches; these are just ones that sounded better. We take it down the chain now. I've got console 1 open. Let's just use the console 1 actually just to demonstrate this. So I've got a gate and a high cut on here, so nothing more complicated than that.
From a cold
Bit of compression as well.
steel rail, a smile from a veil. And do you think you can tell? And did they get you the trick?
Just sort of cleaning up, the recording, and not really the performance there. That's just a scientific incrementation. And
Trade your heroes for ghosts,
bit of air going on.
and hot ashes for trees.
No compression on that one. De-essing, very important.
And hot air for a cool breeze, and cold culture for change.
Then into a tape emulator.
And did you
Again, because obviously there's a lot of tape emulation going on the synths and a lot of tape emulation going on the acoustic guitar. So it's good to match that a little bit, because then it would sound a bit too pristine compared to the rest. I was going for accuracy to the original recording, which was recorded in the 70s. So the idea of using tape emulation makes total sense. Now we go look into our reverbs, and this is a very Abbey Road style room reverb or vocal plate, this one, but I'm quashing that I'm high passing quite heavily, and I am just taking that high end out as well.
exchange or walk on part in the war?
But that's a very subtle reverb. Yeah, so CLA Epic that's doing a lot of the hard work. So
For a lead role in a cage.
and then particularly for the 2 lost souls swimming in a fishbowl segment, it's all
Fish, and how I wish you were here. 'Cause we're just 2 lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year.
and then finally we got some compression going on.
We're running over the same.
It's parallel compression, obviously I'm absolutely slamming it, but then I'm knocking back with the dry mix section. Let's just have a look on my buses, because it's important. I've got 2 buses. I've got an instrument bus and a mix bus. If there was drums, there'd be a drum bus. But instrument bus is literally only got 1 plug-in in it, and what it does is it is sidechained to the vocal, and whenever the vocal's singing, it's compressing slightly, quite subtly, the rest of the track. So if we listen to everything, and we'll see what's happening there. So it's not working now because there's no vocal being sung. But here,
So you think you can tell?
just a little bit of compression. And all that's doing is meaning the vocal can sit comfortably in the track, and the vocal shouldn't be competing with anything. You can have a bass and a kick competing, you can have a snare competing with some other low mid frequencies, but the vocal absolutely has to be the focus. It's the main performance. And then let's look at the mix bus. So again, an EQ with a bit of resonance I'm taking out, high passing, and then a really high shelf, and there's almost inaudible to the point where it's pointless, but it's just a bit of air, just a bit of sparkle. Because if there was an issue with that end, I would have dealt with that in the individual tracks, but that's just something to do to every single track to kind of give it a better feel. Another compressor.
Heaven from hell,
It's really not doing
blue
anything.
skies from pain. Can you tell a grim fear?
Again, just very subtly, just a bit of glue, really, just to make it all work cohesively. And this is very interesting. This is the center plugin, and what this does is we're affecting the stereo image of the whole song. So what my settings are, I've not messed around with the center or the sides, because again, I would have changed that. This could be used as quite a successful mastering plugin if you're trying to fix how much of a stereo image there is. But essentially, I've got all of my low end in the center. So that's the bass, which is already center, but it's also the low end of the guitar as well. It just in that sort of 200-ish zone is not being affected by my panning. I've taken that out, and that just means one thing: it will sum down to mono a bit easier, which is good. But also, it makes the stereo imaging more of just an effect than like, you know, science. So it makes it easy to stay in phase. We can concentrate on things more, and it saves room for other things. So if everything's all stereo imaged, you do want a center ground of a structure. Normally a center ground would be bass, kick, snare, vocal. But also if you can centralize just the low end of the acoustic guitar as well, it's going to make your mix sound much more impactful. And punch again to the center, that's just more to think about the bass. But it's not to completely, because obviously if I play this, and if I...
From a cold steel rail, a smile from a veil. And do you think you can tell? And did they get you the train?
So essentially this is a plugin that deals with width, but also you can control what you're making wide, and it's very, very helpful. And it's got some really good metering as well to show you exactly you know, what you're playing with. Then we've got the MV2, which is almost an infamous plugin at this point. So it's compressing, but it's doing something quite specific. You're increasing volume in certain levels. So I'm decreasing the highs and increasing the lows. So it's a compressor. It is a compressor, but unlike compressor where you're dealing with attack and threshold and volume and ratios, it just gives a couple of extra dynamics to the way you can affect the audio. So it's really good. Again, it's more of a mastering plugin, but it's good to have these things on your mix bus because you're not mastering songs in the same project. That's definite, but you're getting as close as you think you can get close, and mastering is giving another set of ears and then getting it to the parameters for streaming. But you still want to use these plugins to try and get as close as you possibly can. Now we've got another reverb, again using that Abbey Road technique, very, very only 10% being let through. But again, using the same reverb on the whole track, all it does is, again, it glues it together, makes it a cohesive performance, because of course all these things are recorded separately. So in doing this, we're making it feel like it wasn't. And then finally, a tape emulation. We're not dealing with crosstalk or really stability, because that would make it sound, you know, too much of an effect. But what we're doing is we're just running it through the, you know, fake digital preamps that this has, and the colorization, and just getting a very clean sound through it, even as a tape emulator, but just using that that sound to I don't know, to kind of, because obviously we're running through tape emulators all through this track, and to have one on the mix bus as well, kind of just, again, it makes it all cohesive. A mix bus is designed to make everything work together. And finally, we have a limiter. Now, this limiter would not normally be on this track. The reason it's on the track is I knew I wasn't mastering this song. So I put a limiter on it so I could increase it by 8 decibels or whatever, and put a true peak limiter on it, and add my oversampling, because, again, there's a very quick way of mastering, even though it's not mastering. And then the one that's turned off on the stereo out is the Insight plugin.
Hot ashes for trees, and hot air for a cool breeze, and cold culture for change.
And what this does is it gives you every meter you could think of, but I'm using it for LUFs, just because, again, I was mastering it in the same track. Again, getting to that minus 15, 14 is kind of where you want to be. You don't want to be too much louder than that. And I have a true peak of 2 because it's an acoustic performance. I'm uploading it to YouTube. I'm not putting it on streaming. So I wasn't really dealing with the -1, which is the industry standard. I was just dealing with what I felt sounded best. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the original cover, and I hope this has given some insight into how we mix things here at Barnhanger Studios. And maybe I'll do one about, you know, the recording setup and the microphone techniques I use as well.